Hey guys, welcome to today's video. But before we get into the interview, I wanted to provide you a little perspective on what you are about to hear. There's some great information on the career of a game warden for those who are seeking out that profession, but there's also great insight on the roles and responsibilities of a state game warden. This includes everything from behavioral training, criminal justice training, academy, education, and very importantly, personal experience. And I'm going to tell you right now that these folks are elite. And I don't exaggerate when I say that. I mean elite members of law enforcement and conservation. And their knowledge base is just second to none. They are extremely passionate about what they do. And as we speak, Mark is on standby for emergency response to Louisiana in the wake of Hurricane Ida, and he is ready to go. In fact, he said, send me. I want to go. That's what I do. I want to be there to help and save lives. I mean, he just reminded me of Isaiah when he says, here I am, send me. And you'll hear Mark speak with a lot of passion, and I just couldn't be more impressed with him and the insight he was able to provide for all of us. I really encourage you to listen to as much of the interview as you can, even if you have to do it in 2 parts, because it is worth every single second. I had planned for this to be like a 20 or 30 minute interview, and we ended up going for an entire hour, and we could have gone for another, I'm telling you. I'm going to provide some timestamps in the description to help you guys out, and if there's any questions that you guys have that did not get addressed or answered, just leave them in the comments and I will certainly get you an answer for them. And without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, everyone, thank you so much for stopping by, checking out today's video. And as you can tell, we're doing things a little bit different today as we kick off a new series, because one thing that I do want to focus on with my efforts with this channel is to help young people, those looking to pursue careers in the outdoors, conservation, and different areas like that, is to really get some insight on what those career paths look like and the steps that it really takes to get there. I certainly remember what it was like trying to make those decisions with total lack of guidance and information at hand. And what I hope we can do here is to kind of be that support for you. So this is going to be a fun series to do over the course of the year and months to come. I don't know how consistent it'll be, but certainly look forward to talking to several people and kind of bringing that to you. And really, what better place to start with than one of the most important positions in conservation, which is the state game warden. And our guest today has been so gracious enough to spend his valuable time answering some of mine and your questions. And that guest is Mark Nelson. Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yep, I really appreciate it. And just so everybody knows, I mean, full disclosure, Mark and I have really just met. We've been talking it over, trying to plan this out, and it's really kind of come together kind of fast. So I appreciate that, Mark. And been great talking with you so far. We've been catching up before we kind of started recording here, and I appreciate your time today. And Mark is Texas State Game Warden out of Hardin County, which is right smack dab in the middle of southeast Texas piney woods. A lot of folks in the woods. Just talking with Mark, sounds like he stays pretty busy, even with business in the surrounding counties. And there's a lot of that to kind of unpack. So once we get into that today, we'll hope you have a little bit of better understanding on what this career looks like for you and some of those details. So Mark, again, I appreciate it. And if you could just give a little bit of your kind of introduce yourself, get a little bit of your history and how you came to be a Texas Game Warden at this point.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, originally I'm from Cypress, Texas, where I graduated from Cy Creek High School. Right after high school, directly after high school, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps active duty, and I left and I did 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps. Did 2 tours in the Persian Gulf. Both tours were aboard the USS Boxer. This is pre 9/11, mind you.
Right.
And when I got out of the Marine Corps, honorably discharged, I got out of the Marine Corps, went direct to Sam Houston State University, where I majored in agriculture business and minored in accounting. And I'd always been aware of what game wardens did, and I'd always thought it was interesting and stuff like that. I went ahead and applied as I was graduating, my senior year, and I made it through made it far along in the selection process. However, I wasn't selected. I didn't get in. So I went ahead and moved on, and I worked a few sales jobs after graduation from SAMU. So I ended up as a senior account executive for HSBC Bank in Killeen, Texas. But however, I did that for several years. But during the economic crisis of 2008, the entire section of HSBC Bank closed down. That part of the business that I was in, it's approximately 6,100 people. We were all laid off on one day, basically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then from after that, I did a few odd jobs, and my wife encouraged me to apply to be a game warden again because, we were kind of transitioning. We didn't have any kids at the time. And I said, you know what, I just went ahead and applied again. And several years had passed from the first time that I had applied to this time. So the second time I applied, I was accepted into the 55th Game Warden Cadet class, which started January 1st, 2010. And so I did the initial training at the training facility. And once I graduated the Game Warden Academy, I was stationed in Webb County, Texas, which is the major city there would be Laredo.
Okay. Okay.
I was there for exactly 2 years, and then I had the opportunity to transfer to Hardin County from Webb County, and I went ahead and took it. And that's I've been here since 2012, and I currently live in Silsbee, Texas, and next month I will have been married for 13 years. I got 3 kids, ages 5, 6, and 11.
Man, you're a well-rounded individual, I would say.
Proud to be said.
You were almost a suit and tie kind of guy there for a while, huh?
I was a suit and tie type of guy, but I wasn't happy doing that. I thought I was, but you really got to do what makes you happy. And being a Texas Game Warden isn't for everybody, and being a banker isn't for everybody either. It certainly wasn't for me. I'll tell you that, but I'm quite a bit happier in the current position that I have.
Yeah, I don't think I have met a game warden yet that wasn't very passionate about what they do. And like I said, it just as far as conservation, law enforcement, I mean, you guys are really pretty diverse individuals, and I just think it's so interesting to hear you guys' backgrounds because you kind of come from a lot of walks of life. And then that's new. You and I have been talking, but I was curious to see if you had military background. Hearing you in the Marines, that's awesome, man. Appreciate that service very much. And I know a lot of you guys come from military backgrounds. Isn't that right?
Yeah, quite a few of us. On the application for the state of Texas, the application that you fill out when you apply to be a Texas Game Warden is the same for any position in the state of Texas. And I don't know what it's called exactly, but it's on a point system, obviously. But you get being honorably discharged from the military gives you a few extra points that another person with the same exact background without military experience doesn't get. So it does give you an advantage, on the application process, as it should. You serve the country honorably for 4 years at least, whatever, and they're going to consider you a little bit more of a candidate over someone else.
Right, man. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that detail before, and that's some of those insights that hard to figure out when you're just kind of researching yourself. But like I said, that's a lot of information. So kind of want to unpack that a little bit so we can kind of understand that process a little more.
Sure.
And we'll kind of start from the beginning. I mean, did you grow up in the outdoors, hunting, fishing kind of thing? I mean, has that always been kind of a part of your life?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I grew up fishing mostly, very, very little hunting, but a lot of saltwater and freshwater fishing. It seemed like almost every summer, my aunt and uncle had a creek house down on Caney Creek, which is in Sargent, Texas, and that's where I basically grew up and spent most of my summers is on a boat, fishing saltwater, and then some freshwater, going to the lakes with my parents and stuff like that. I was always outside, outdoors. I didn't grow up. I mean, we had video games and stuff like that. That's just not something that I was into when I was younger. I mean, a little bit, I guess, but it didn't consume my mind like it consumes these kids' minds today,
Right, yeah. And I think we all kind of went through that.
Definitely person.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I think we all, that was kind of, that was the big boom when I, being a 90s kid. It was like you were kind of forced to go through that. But then even for myself, once I set foot in the woods the first couple of times, I was, even as a kid, I was like, okay, yeah, this is a little bit my style right here.
Absolutely.
So, but it's interesting to kind of hear some of that background. I mean, and when did you know? I guess you kind of elaborated on that. When did you first start believing that this might be a career for you?
Well, when I was a kid, like I said, in Sargent, Texas, my uncle, he's passed away now. He was in Korea, but my uncle he kind of taught me and my dad both how to fish. My dad was a lot younger than him, and he'd always told us, we saw game wardens pass by every now and again. He would say, that's the best job in the world right there. And I'm like, why? What is it about that job? And that's when I first learned they're police officers on the water. They get to regulate hunting, fishing. And as a kid, it doesn't mean much to you. But then, when you get older, you start actually researching stuff. And having a military background, there's a lot of police officers that have military backgrounds because that's just that type of personality that's attracted to the job. It's physical and mental at the same time, and that's just kind of I gravitated towards it. I didn't major in it in college because I wanted to give myself a few other options in case I didn't get in, which, I didn't get in the first time, so I went to business. And so, and then once the business ended, as it sometimes does, I applied again to be a game warden and was able to get into the second time I applied.
Yeah, it was interesting, when you were going through your background, I'm sitting here kind of checking off these boxes in my head, I'm thinking military, great education, business and accounting background. I'm like, man, just great background, always. And then yet you applied for academy and didn't get in.
Yeah.
And, that kind of leads into my next question. Texas has pretty high standards when it comes to individuals in those type of positions. I know it is very competitive. Texas, they require, it's a bachelor's degree to enter into those positions. And like you say, a lot of people come from, law enforcement backgrounds or military backgrounds or, higher education and things like that. But, so as far as that warden school, once you got it, what is that? What's the proper terminology? Is it academy? Is it candidate school? Or what? How should I reference that?
Well, it's the Texas Game Warden Academy or Training Center, and it's located in Hamilton, Texas. Our facility or our process is a little different because when somebody makes it to the Game Warden Training Center, they have been hired, they've been accepted. As long as they graduate the Game Warden Academy, they will be a game warden. Some people, not everybody that makes it even that far makes it through the academy. I think there's I don't know what the percentage is, but there's every academy class loses cadets. So,
oh, wow.
It's one of the longest law enforcement training in the country. It's 7 months long, and you have to live there. So that's where you reside, and they give you some weekends off, some not. It just depends. Training is every day, and it's a lot. It's a big commitment.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So do you get to make trips home? Or you kind of, I'm sure they let you out every once in a while, right?
Yeah, you have to check out, for example, if you do get a weekend off, they'll let you go, at 5 o'clock or whatever on Friday, and you have to sign out, and everybody has to be back, sign back in Sunday evening at a certain time. I can't remember what exact time that is, but so they have to be back in at that particular time because class starts on Monday morning. Sure. And that's only if they get the weekend off. If you have to retake a test, if you run behind on training, if you have to redo something, then you give up your weekend. You have to stay there.
Okay. So with that said, what and I know there's probably a lot you could go into, but maybe just kind of a few buckets, maybe 3 buckets, so to speak. what does that candidate school look like? Is there, is it classroom training and then followed by, is there certain kind of buckets of the training what does that look like kind of from front to back in summary?
Well, our training facility is it's a ranch. It's in Hamilton, Texas, and it's a large facility. It's completely self-sustained. As far as we got a cafeteria, we got cadet quarters, instructor quarters, the gym, firing range. Everything's there that we need to train, and that's why you have to live there, is because it takes that long to go through it and go through everything. I guess what exactly were you wanting to as far as what is a
well, I guess I'm sure you guys have a lot of classroom training out there, right? I mean, there's a lot of classroom training, but is there also, there's like, classroom training, there's also, is there, firing range training, firearms training in a separate, in kind of a separate setting, and then, things like that?
Well, yeah, it's all there. It's, a lot of it, tons of it is classroom instruction, because, there's a lot of tests and law and stuff like that. So we have an auditorium, and so, there's classroom, there's practical application, and then there's real world experience. For example, the classroom application would probably be first and throughout the academy, and then practical application would be or training, hands-on would be scenarios. And what scenarios are is when you have game wardens from the field who are active game wardens that are trained instructors. They'll come to the game warden training center, and they will dress up like civilians, and basically the cadets go through, and it's a controlled environment, of course, and they go through different scenarios where active game wardens are portraying the public and how the public reacts to us, and the cadet has to go through and figure a way, basically make it through a contact, or make it through a shooting scenario, or make it through, an arrest, whatever. Anything can be thrown at you. So like I said, it's in a controlled environment. You don't get out there in the public and do it. And then towards the end of the academy, there's different field trips that cadets go on. For example, they go through a hunting field trip where during hunting season, they physically get sent to different counties around the state, and then that cadet will ride with an active game warden in the field in order to observe what we're doing and how we're doing it in a real world situation. They come back and they debrief, and they discuss it, and they write what they've learned, and and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of almost all aspects of the job are discussed or gone over in the classroom through scenarios, and then actually in the field before they're able to graduate.
Man, that is about the best description of on-the-job training without that is very detailed on-the-job training. Like you said, once they get to the point where they're actually out, experiencing, the everyday job roles and responsibilities with an active warden. That's pretty cool. That's pretty detailed. I've never heard that.
Well, and now we have a fairly new program. Once cadets actually graduate, now they're wardens. When they get to the field, they will be assigned to a field training officer, which I am actually also a field training officer. And it's without going into too much detail about that, it took me 4 days to learn how to do all that stuff. But it's a pretty detailed program that active game wardens that are new to the field have to complete in order to be out on their own. So it is just basically more on-the-job training. It's through 3 phases. The first phase is watching a field training officer do his job or her job, and the second phase would be switching off, where the active game warden is the lead officer, then the new game warden is the lead officer, switching back and forth and discussing it throughout. And the third phase would be the new game warden does everything, and the active game warden that's been in the field, that field training officer observes that and just kind of makes critiques from there. So it's a crawl, walk, run type thing once even you get to the field.
Sure, man, lot of detailed training. It sounds like. I mean, you guys are very well trained. It sounds like. I really had no idea.
Yeah, we get. That is one, I think, a real positive thing about being working for the state agency is the amount of training that we do get. For example, I was in search warrant writing school for the past couple days before I got back in this area, and they trained us how to write search. I mean, I knew how to write search warrants, but we got trained from an actual attorney. So it was really good to see that. We've also gone through a lot of training with detecting deception, interview and interrogation, all that sort of thing. It all comes into it's all a tool that goes into our toolbox. And a lot of these smaller agencies, like Hardin County Sheriff's Department, they're a bunch of great people, no doubt. They just don't have the money to send all their officers to that type of training. It's not their fault. It's just there's just a small organization.
Right. Yeah. The resources are different, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Right. And so with that said, you kind of led into that kind of the first assignment as a state game warden. I know there's some kind of details around those first assignments. When you guys graduate, you go through your training, and you receive that first assignment. How do those assignments get sort of? Do you get a choice, or is there any restrictions on where you can go? I know you mentioned that your first assignment was down. What we would all probably closely identify with would be Laredo. How does that first assignment work?
Well, it goes by the needs of the department, number one. So when somebody's going through the application process, they're going to get asked many, many times upon graduation from the Game Warden Training Center, you will accept employment anywhere in the state of Texas, which means that you can't be upset with where we send you. You're going to go where we want you to go. So you have no idea. When you start the academy, you have absolutely no idea where you're going. I didn't know that I would be going to Laredo until about 2 weeks before graduation. And then my wife headed down there to look for a place. And nobody knows where they're going ahead of time. Sometimes we got a list, but nobody got what they wanted. They're going to send you where they need you. On the border, on the Texas-Mexico border, there's a lot of people that are needed. So that's where a lot of people start off. Sure. 20, 30 years ago, nobody wanted to be on the coast. That's where everybody went to cut their teeth down there, there's really no bad duty station. It's where what you make of it. You know what I mean? So, right. It's an attitude. Hold on one second. My dog's barking. I got
No, that's no problem.
All right, man. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Where were we?
You said, folks used to kind of cut their teeth on the coast, but and I agree with what you're saying. As my thought process was, there is no bad locations as far as, I mean, you to me, it was kind of like, if you're really committed, you want to go outside of your comfort zone. You want to go get some new experience some. Texas is like 4 states in one, I mean, you could get up in the north and you're almost in the plains and grassland. You get down south, in the valley, East Texas, big woods, Central Texas, a lot of hill country, and even, borderline mountains. You go far west, you're basically out in the desert. So,
yep. Yeah. I mean, and it also, they look at everybody has a different personality, and everybody's at that point a game warden, so you should be able to go anywhere. However, like any other job, there's strengths and weaknesses to their employees. So they're going to send, they're going to take a look at that, and they know that, it's where they need people. Number one, number two, who is the best fit for that spot that we think, and that's usually how they make up their mind. And then you get sent there, and then that's where you're at until there's a transfer list that's put out, and that's a whole different process as far as being able to transfer, being eligible. Number one, number two, that there is a list out, and then it goes by seniority at that point. So, there's desirable stations over less desirable stations, and usually the wardens with more time get the ones that are more desirable, because they've got more time on. So
sure. So in short, as your career progresses, you get a little bit closer to having a little bit of a choice, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I could have stayed in Laredo my entire career and not ever moved, but that's not where we wanted to be. And we transferred here, and we didn't know that here was where we really wanted to stay. And then the longer we were here, the more we liked it. And it's like, look, I don't think it's going to get any better than this. So we decided to go ahead and stay. So I'll be here the rest of my career. God willing.
Right. So one of the questions I got that was, I thought, a really good question. I don't think a lot of people understand these next couple of questions, but I mean, compared to other areas of law enforcement, whether that be like local sheriff's office, state troopers, a lot of those guys that are kind of out front that we see a lot more of, how does your sort of authority and jurisdiction as a game warden lie within those spaces? I mean, as far as, whether that being, I guess, being involved in criminal investigations or making arrests, because a lot of people think that you guys, are out, going to house calls, for a gator in the front yard, or, looking for poachers. But how does that, you guys have such a far reach,
Right.
In areas of responsibility? I mean, and it really makes sense, listen to all of your training and all your background, I guess. And I'll kind of rephrase that since I kind of went past it a little bit, but compared to those local departments, how is your authority and jurisdiction kind of described for us normal folks as a game warden?
Well, game wardens and state troopers, and then TVC agents, and then there's another one, I think the state law enforcement. Our authority is in every county in the state of Texas, because the state of Texas is who holds our commission. For example, like Hardin County Sheriff's Department, they're a peace officer in the entire state of Texas, no doubt, but their arrest authority, I mean, if they caught somebody outside their area doing like a felony or something like that, they can definitely act on that. But their authority generally is going to lie in Hardin County, and that's their area of operation. But our area of operation is the entire state. Now, we're assigned by county, but that doesn't mean that I, can only do work in that county. I can do work anywhere. In we intertwine our paths and everything cross, especially in a smaller county, like, not smaller, it's I guess it is smaller in Hardin County, but my path in the sheriff's department, state troopers, constables, police departments, all that, we cross paths constantly, which means that we're constantly working together on all kinds of things. So, in our jurisdiction, our authority, which would be different, and everybody hears that we have the most authority than the CIA and all this sort of thing.
Right.
But our authority that people are talking about when it comes to that is two things. It's inspection authority and the authority to enter private property. Now, when you talk about private property, I don't mean like a cookie cutter neighborhood with wooden fences and that sort of thing. I'm talking about like, the hunting club stuff, going into a hunting club, which is private property. That's a 10,000 acre, piece of property that we can do. We can cut through someone else's property to get to a different property if we're enforcing Parks and Wildlife regulation. And when it comes to inspection authority, we have inspection authority to inspect inside of certain things for illegal wildlife resources. So we don't have the authority to enforce, penal code and health and safety and all that sort of thing using our special authority, but we can enforce Parks and Wildlife Code violations and use our special authority. So we can't enter private property to enforce, trespassing, because that's penal code. That's not Parks and Wildlife. So that being said, we're just like any other cop when it comes to the laws that the other cops enforce. So just that one. This is a little bit of a detail with being able to, for example, go up and check a bank fisherman that has that he's sitting on top of a cooler, and he's fishing. He's actively involved in the act of fishing. We're going to look in the cooler whether they want us to or not, and normally people understand that. And again, we've got to be tactful and nice about it, but we can look in there if we want to, because fish can be stored in there. So most people understand it, and they just lift it up for us, show us whatever. Hey, you mind if I take a look? So there's, we need to deal with the public respectfully. So our little special authorities are here and there, but you got to watch it because that stuff can be taken away, and you really got to know and understand that to where we don't cross the line.
Sure. Yeah. And I had the thought when you were talking about, some of the extensive training that you guys have. You guys really are masters of personal interaction, behavioral based training and things like that. I would think, de-escalation and things like that, interacting with the public and, and making sure that, gaining a person's trust, which you guys warrant that regardless. But I would expect that you guys are kind of mastering at navigating those interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, if you think about it, we're basically investigators and field officers at the same time. We don't just react to calls. Deputies react to calls, and then they pass the investigative stuff over to the detectives. But we handle both sides of our stuff. So that being said, we go to a lot of those special classes and learn how to detect deception and microfacial movements and all that sort of thing, because we do interview a lot of people after the fact. And having those tools in your toolbox is it's gonna parlay over to other violations that are gonna be sheriff's department, like drugs, theft. We get a lot of training on human trafficking, and like you said, de-escalation. It's a big thing, and we come across all facets of everything. And so if we're just trained on just checking fishermen and dove hunters and stuff like that, which we do,
right,
going to miss out on a lot of the other things that can get us get us into some other crimes and stuff like that.
Right. That's a great explanation on kind of that experience, as a game warden. It kind of leads into the next question, which somebody had was, do you guys monitor emergency calls, or are you just kind of, I guess to put it simply, the same type of waves of calls that, local sheriff's departments would monitor, or do they kind of pull you in as needed, or, like you elaborated, kind of like assisting on other types of investigations, but do you guys kind of monitor emergency calls, or you guys, you have a sort of dispatch, so to speak? You guys have your own phone numbers, so people could contact you directly.
Yeah, we've got state issued cell phones that the public has access to, that can call us at any time. We also have our own dispatch out of Austin that dispatches specialty calls that come into Austin. However, as far as monitoring emergency calls and monitoring what's going on here locally, constantly, absolutely. Sometimes I'll sit at the house with my radio listening to the county or the city or whatever, because in a county like this where you've got probably 4 to 5 deputies on, that's not a lot, and if they need help, you better believe I'm going to go back them up, because when I need help, I've got right now I've got no partner. Before I had one partner. So if I need help, and I have needed help in the past, and they've backed me up, and they're going to be there for me, So as far as other investigations, we're constantly getting called in to assist, especially me now that I've been here so long. I've been contacted by, the sheriff's department, the PD, crime victims. I've been asked to assist with some camera operations with them. I do a lot of surveillance, and I've become pretty good at that. And so as far as trespassing, illegal hunting, that's why I do that surveillance stuff. But I've also been pulled into the sheriff's department for different investigations that they're doing. I've recovered, I was brought in to search for a murder weapon. I was brought in to search for a safe that had been stolen, and I actually found the safe. I brought in, lots of theft stuff, because a lot of the stuff that's going on, they're frequent customers of mine as well, if you will. And so, yeah, some of my best friends are detectives. I talk to them almost every day, more than my own partner, So we're constantly exchanging information in order to solve any crime. Doesn't matter. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with sexual assault and stuff like that. That's something, if I'm asked to assist, which they really wouldn't need me to, but they bring me in if something's going on in the woods and stuff like that. Also, we do a lot of search and rescue. So, for example, last night there was 2 kayakers that were missing, and they couldn't get a hold of them. So normally I would go and answer that call, but I was off last night. So the Silsbee Fire, I was on the phone with the chief, and him and I talked through it, and they were able to recover those kayakers safe and sound. So I work with Silsbee Fire Department quite a lot. I work with the Adult Probation Department all the time because a lot of their people I come across either hunting, fishing, or just in general. And if I know that they're on probation, I parlay that into getting into other violations. So the longer I've been here, the more connections and relationships I make with other law enforcement and first responders. It really opens up the door to the cases that I can file and the work that I can get into. So that's kind of how, but yeah, so to answer your question, it absolutely, when at any duty station, you're going to be part of a larger team than just being a game warden. You're a law enforcement team. So the sheriff's department, is and me work together all the time. Fire department, victim crime services, probation, a little bit of the juvenile stuff I deal with as well. But I mean, you name it, I do it. That's kind of how that works.
Right, man. There's you sound like a pretty busy guy most of the time, but it goes to show how important you guys' role is, and in the overall the big picture. And I always knew that, and that's part of the reason. Part of what's important to highlight here is you guys are not just stewards of recreation, conservation, and preservation. You guys do a lot. You go do a lot for the community, do a lot for the city, for the counties, and the state. In general, which kind of leads me to my next question, and it may be a little bit of a spinoff of what you just said. But so some of those roles, what are some of like the roles through partnerships that a warden takes part in that people may not be aware of, like outside of maybe law enforcement, but really I'm thinking more like public awareness, education, or schools, veterinarian clinics, or rehabilitations for things like that, because you guys just have such a network that you work through, and that's really what you're describing there is a network that you're involved in, and how your role is in there. But something that somebody may not be aware of as far as those type of items.
As far as like what we.
Well, no, you mentioned you did some volunteering.
Well, that's the volunteer work that I do is I don't get paid for it. I don't do it on the clock. I do it on my days off. And basically, and this is just me, and this isn't every game warden, it's just something that I do, but because I saw a need for it. But during COVID, how that started was during right when COVID was kicking off. People were frequenting the outdoors because they had nowhere else to go. And I remember taking a picture of a bunch of trash. I'm talking a mound of trash at the 96 Sandbar in Village Creek, which is extremely, it's a remote area. So there's not a lot of people there's a lot of people that go there, but it's hard to get to. Yep. So there's a heap of trash. I'm talking, like a truckload of trash that was just left there by people that came to recreate there. And to me, that's infuriating. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to, I texted to the judge. Judge Melissa Minton, Justice Peace Precinct 5, and I said, "Hey, Judge, look at this." I said, "Do you have anybody that needs community service?" And she said, "Not right now, but I'll text you when I do." And then she texted me a week or two later and said, "Hey, look, I got a bunch of juveniles that got caught with some alcohol," and she asked me if I would go and supervise them picking up that trash. And I said, "Judge, if you sentence them to that, and that's what you want to do, I'll go down there on my day off and do it. I don't care. I'll yes, absolutely." So that's kind of, so I went down there on my day off and I supervised them picking up trash, and it was real informal in the beginning. And then so I was, I'm gonna schedule this. So I started posting on my own Facebook page, "Hey, look, I'm gonna be down here if anybody needs community service." And then a lot of people showed up, and so we picked up a lot more trash. And then we did that a couple times. And then what happened was a good friend of mine, Colette Nelson, she's actually not related to me, same last name though. She's an adult probation officer for Hardin County. Well, she said, "Hey, do you mind if I come out there and bring some of my people?" And I said, "Absolutely, come on," and so she brought a ton of people. I mean, a lot. And so then her and I started doing this together, and with her probation people and then people that receive citations. And then it got so big that I said, we need to make our own Facebook page, because I don't really want this. I don't, it's not a me project. It's an us project. So I made a Facebook group page called Hardin County Community Service. And then we started posting ahead of time what we were doing. And then we had people show up all summer during COVID. And then it got so big again that we were interviewed by the SILSBB. That's that time I was interviewed by the SILSBB, and it made its way around to the judges, and the judges were real happy about it. They were real happy with me, and so we started taking on larger projects, and it's all online. You can check it out. It's Hardin County Community Service on Facebook, and anybody can like it, share it, whatever. And we started doing church playgrounds, and we did clean up cemeteries and picked up trash. We fixed stuff for elderly people. I mean, we've just done it all. And then I brought on another supervisor. Again, none of us get paid for this. This is just, so I brought on my buddy Randall Stevens, who's a retired firefighter. And then we brought on a fourth supervisor. It's another buddy of mine named Wesley Smock. He's a retired police officer out of Waco. And anyway, us four run this thing, and it's basically like a nonprofit. We don't accept anything yet. We're trying to make it a 501c3 organization, but we've got a lot. The probation department bought us a trailer and equipment, and now we're kind of big time. I mean, we go to baseball fields and we cut grass for free, and we take people and we make them do their community service. We supervise them doing community service that they were sentenced to do, and it's free labor, but we're volunteering our time. But again, this is just something that I do, and because of the connections that I have as a game warden. But I'm not getting paid or benefiting from it, other than I'm giving back to the public. I'm making sure that the people that owe their community service pay it back to the community. And the DA, Rebecca Walton, the county attorney, Matt Minnick, the county judge, Wayne McDaniel, all the commissioners, everybody's behind what I'm doing. Everybody knows me, and everybody's behind it. So it's really exploded, and I'm needing to get with an attorney to see about setting up an actual nonprofit to where we can accept donations and money in order to put back into buying equipment in order to offer this for free. Because a lot of these baseball fields, they can't hire a groundskeeper, you know what I mean? So we go out there almost every Wednesday and cut grass at the Little League field. So I mean, we do what we can, but we supervise them doing. That's something that I do on my own. But it started because I was a game warden, I guess. But that's something that I do on my own. That's aside from my actual job.
What I would wrap that up in the sense that a lot of you already mentioned to the nature of the game warden as the way you guys are kind of wired. That's something that is important to you, and I imagine there's a lot of guys in your position like that do seek out those opportunities to give back, be a part of the community in different forms. And a lot of people may reach out to you just for those specific reasons because you guys are such great examples.
Right. And it does help with, in my profession when, if I ask, certain elected officials for, hey, I need, help doing this or whatever, they're not going to tell me no. You know what I mean? Right. And they go out of the way. Something else that if you mentioned, I think you mentioned it earlier, that it is actually part of our job to do public outreach. For example, this interview, this is part of my job. I have to do so many, public outreach events like this. We do a lot. It's a very big part of our job, where you're talking about going to schools where on career day, people, the schools will send out an invitation. Hey, we'd like to have you show up and speak about your career. That's a big part of my job. That's not something that every law enforcement agency does. So,
exactly.
We go out and we talk about our job, or we have an Operation Game Thief trailer that has seized wildlife and fish in it. And we take that around to different events and we show the public that, and we educate the public. Public outreach, public education is a very, very big priority of our job. So we take that very seriously, and that's fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun to sit there and take pictures with kids, especially after the show. You know, it's so popular now to be a game warden. So the public looks up to us, where we live in a fishbowl, and somebody that doesn't like that shouldn't probably get into this profession, because everybody knows where I live in Hardin County. And everybody knows my wife, and we get recognized when we go out in town, that sort of thing. But that's just part of the job, you know.
Right. And that's awesome to hear, because I think there wasn't enough of that. I know when I was a kid, and, we had DARE and things like that, but I don't think we ever had once, had a game warden come to the school. That education came through personal interaction and my time, kind of growing and learning, as an outdoorsman, as a hunter. But that is great to hear that it continues to be such an important part of what you guys do. I think that is very important, and it's along those same lines of what we're trying to do here. And that's very cool to hear that you guys do put an emphasis on, public awareness and interacting with the public and approaching it that way.
Especially in this day and climate, to put some positivity out there from somebody wearing a badge is extremely important, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100% for sure. So let's, want to be sensitive to your time here. So I kind of want to switch gears and let's kind of target the average hunter and see if we can't, before we wrap things up, to see if we can't help some of those folks doing recreational activities, whether it be fishing. See if we can't help them out with a couple of tips here. I know I had a couple of questions. And I hope this makes sense. But so what is the most common? I think I have an answer in the back of my head, but I'm kind of curious to see what you say. But what would be like the most common violation or simple violation that a lot of people commit that they really don't intend to, or that they overlook? Kind of like a lot of people don't know you need to do this or have this. Do you have an example or two of that?
Yeah, I definitely have a couple examples of that. Starting off with hunting, I think that most people don't realize it is a common violation that you have to have hunter's education if you're born on or after September 1st, 1971. And that is the law, and that's the date. And so I'm 43 years old, and I have to have hunter's education. I have it, so but I think that most people don't understand that they do have to have that. So it is a common violation that we see. You can take it all online if you're 17 and older, and it's good for life. So, and if you do receive a citation for it, it is a dismissible ticket if you take it within 90 days. As far as water safety season, with my body of water, Village Creek being a large attraction as far as kayakers and canoers, and the common violation that I see is people not understanding or knowing that they need to have a life jacket on board, even if you're in a kayak or canoe. Don't have to wear it, just got to have it on board. And it's got to be wearable, not one of those square cushion ones. I mean, you can have that, but that doesn't count as a wearable life jacket. A lot of people, if they take an outfitter they rent a kayak or canoe, the outfitter will give them a life jacket. But if they have their own, sometimes they just don't realize that they need it because it doesn't have a motor. It doesn't matter if it's a kayak canoe, you got to have a wearable life jacket on board.
Yeah, I could kind of understand that. If somebody's thinking that, they're not out in the bay, going 40 miles an hour on an outboard boat. They think, hey, this is just simple. I'm just perusing around the creek, or the bayou, and in a canoe, or this little flat bottom that my grandpa gave me, and or a kayak that I borrowed from a friend or something like that, and really kind of it kind of deadens them to what the laws still are.
Absolutely. And the only other thing that, I kind of want to point out, that it wasn't a big deal, several years ago because people were young, but now if you operate a motorboat with a horsepower of 15 or more than 15 horsepower, and you were born on or after September 1st, 1993, you have to have boater's education.
That is an awesome point.
Right, because back in the somebody born in 1993 now is in their 20s, and it's like, dude, I'm in my 20s. I don't need boaters. No, you do if you're driving a motorboat of over 15 horsepower. Now, you can get around that by having somebody else on board that already has it or is too old to take it. However, you're all for the rest of that person's life, they're going to have it eventually. You know what I mean? So you're going to be operating a motorboat of 15 horsepower or more someday. So you might as well go ahead and take it. You can take it all online if you're 17 years of age or older. Or I'm sorry, you can take that online at any age. Yes, that's just the hunter's education. You got to be 17 years of age or older.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's really, really good points and reminders right there, because I think you're all right. There's a lot of that right that probably gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let's a little bit more serious violation. I had a question that what was an example of a violation that could result in someone losing their ability to purchase a license, whether that be a hunting or fishing license, for a lifetime? Does that kind of thing? I mean, I guess it does exist, but we're talking about serious offenses there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it all depends on, what the judges, what the sentence is. So, I mean, the common violations that I see in Hardin County, for example, to hunt without landowner consent, which is a Class A misdemeanor, that comes with a license suspension of anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So you can't hunt or fish for in between 1 and 5 years. If you take a wildlife resource, if you take a deer without landowner permission, that's a state jail felony, and that also comes with a suspension. Now, a suspension to hunt or fish under a suspended license is an automatic Class A misdemeanor, and again, it would come with another suspension. So. Or it could be enhanceable, but nothing. Someone being banned for life. I mean, it could happen, but it'd have to be at the direction of the judge, I believe, or whoever's sentencing that person. Part of the plea bargain and whatnot. But hunting without landowner consent would probably be the highest crime that we investigate and or file on the hunting side of it. And I have filed that several times, and yeah, they do get it. They do get their license suspended.
Right. Yep. Right, and rightfully so. That's so that is just hunting without consent of the landowner. Right? You just see a lot of people just wandering through the woods, don't realize where they are. You think, or a lot of people know.
Well, we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Here's the thing: in Texas, everyone's like, "Well, I didn't see any signs." Signs have to do with trespassing, which is Penal Code 30.05. Trespassing, there has to be notice. Notice is purple paint, fence, a sign, verbal notice, or some sort of obstruction that prohibits traffic from coming in or going to that area. But hunting, there doesn't have to be any signs at all. It's the responsibility of the hunter to know where they're hunting at. And it's an effective consent state. So if you're on property that you don't know who owns it and you get caught hunting, it's up to you to prove that you had permission to hunt there. It's not up to us to prove that you didn't.
Sure.
You prove that you had permission to hunt there. So the excuse, well, I didn't know, doesn't fly. It doesn't work. So it's up to you. If you're going to hunt, if you're going to do a recreational activity, you need to know the rules with recreational activity. So not having a fence, not having purple paint, not being told that you can't do it, you can't assume that you can. Is my point on that.
Right, and I think a lot of people, what they need to realize is that you're making the choice to go out and enjoy and recreate, hunt, fish, kayak, whatever that may be. We have a responsibility to understand what those regulations are in that particular area, because sometimes they're different. We talked about the big thicket earlier before we started here, and people just need to be on and realize that they need to be accountable. It's not your job to make sure that they understand those before they show up. That's
correct. And that's why the state of Texas, we put out those rules ahead of time. They're on the internet for anybody to see. That's also why the state of Texas pays for me to have a cell phone and accessible to the public 24/7. So if they have a question, they can look up my number and give me a call, or any game warden they can look up. All game warden numbers, all field game warden numbers are listed on the internet on our website, and it goes by county. So if you're going to hunt, I had a guy call me the other day asking me questions about San Augustine County. Well, I don't know. I don't work up there, man. Call that warden. I just don't know. I don't want to answer him because it's not my area. I don't know the special rules and stuff up there. So he called that warden up there and got the answer. So, but yeah, if you're going to kayaking in Village Creek and you have questions about the area or whatever, what's legal or not, I have people call me all the time, and that's part of my job is to answer my phone and answer the public's questions. And so not having access to me is not a possibility. Leave me a message and I'll call you right back.
Yep, that's how I found you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't difficult, was it?
No, it was not. It wasn't like I had to go through even a couple of pages of Google search. It was pretty much first shot, first click. There it was.
Yep. Yeah, you call me right, text me right up, and I texted you back in about 2 seconds. I mean, I take vacation like everybody else, and sometimes I'm out of pocket, sometimes I'm sick, whatever, but I do the best that I can to get back to you. So, but that's what they pay me for. I mean, I get paid to answer questions on my time on and off, and that's part of the job also.
Right. Yep. So I had a couple of more questions I want to try to get out before we wrap this thing up here. I thought we'll just maybe speak to Hardin County. I know there's been some changes, and like I said, we're kind of targeting that average Joe hunter there. Can you use dogs to track wounded deer in Hardin County now, or what are the restrictions behind that?
As of September 1st, I believe that goes into effect. Of course, you wouldn't be tracking deer before then anyway, but yeah, it's legal. It is legal now to track a deer that is wounded with dogs in Hardin County, and actually it's in any county now. There's a few stipulations in different counties as far as having no more than 2. That's not the case in Hardin County. So, but it happens sometimes, especially with as dense as the woods are here. Tracking an animal in that dense of woods, I've done it. I've helped people do it. It's very difficult. So, having the ability to have a dog track a deer is legal now in Hardin County.
Oh, believe me, I hunted in Hardin County for all those years. Like I mentioned to you, probably 12 years. I know what it's like to crawl on my belly looking for a speck of blood for about an hour, realizing I went 20 yards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you lose it, you got to come back. It takes all day. And you don't find it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you good?
But do you have to have a blood trail to bring a dog out? Because I think I know I had a wounded doe in Sam Houston last year, and I called to see what the regulations were for me getting a dog to come track the doe, and like you said, that little bit of a different area. But do you have to have a present blood trail or a visible blood trail, or can you just blind track if you're confident that you wounded them?
Yeah, I mean, if there's nothing says that you have to have, maybe in the national forest, but not in the state of Texas. I mean, if you miss the deer, you're never going to catch up to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now another thing that I really do need to touch on when you do track deer with dogs, or when you're tracking deer in general, that does not give you permission to cross a different property. Some people think that when they shoot and wound a deer and it crosses a property line, that they have the right to go get their deer, and that is not the case. You have to have permission in order to do that. Now, most clubs, especially if they're hunting somewhat near a property line, hey, look, man, I shot a deer, I tracked it all the way to your property line, and I can see it over there, or it's definitely on your side. Do you mind if I go get it? And if that side says, yeah, go get it, then you're good to go. But other than that, then you don't have permission to go get it. So it would be in everybody's best interest to get along with your neighbors and kind of set that up ahead of time. In case that happens, because I've had it happen before where someone's on the other side looking for a deer that they shot on their side, but you're still hunting it on their side. So you're hunting without landowner consent. You're hunting deer without landowner consent, which is a Class A misdemeanor. So, right. To avoid that, I would probably make preparations ahead of time to offset that to where, and they shouldn't really have a problem with you going to get your deer, because then it would just go to waste if you didn't get it, But I needed to say that because I don't think that people sometimes understand that they do not have the right to just go get their deer wherever it goes. No,
that's a great point, and I am glad you brought that up. Unfortunately, if that consenting landowner who that wounded animal crossed their property line, they could tell you no, right? I mean, and
they could tell you no, and the law states that you have to make every reasonable effort to retrieve the deer. So if you track the deer, you can document, look, I tracked the deer to the edge of the property. I called the landowner. He told me no. There's that you made every effort because you can't break the law. So you're stuck. That's it. Your hunt on that particular deer is over. So, but if you don't call the landowner and then you don't go get it, it's like, well, you didn't try. Did you call the game warden? And so, I've had people call and say, hey, look, man, my deer went over here. We've tried to find the landowner, couldn't find it, and so we did the best we could, but make every reasonable effort for sure.
Right. And with that said, is there anything you can do about it other than try to be, you use that training we talked about to be an influencer? And but if the landowner tells you no, like, hey, no, I don't want them on my property, is there anything that you as the warden can say that?
I can definitely try to facilitate that the best that I can. Keep in mind though that it doesn't matter how many if it's in a large hunting county like Hardin County, I don't have time to sit there on the phone and do that during hunting season. You know what I mean? Sure. It's very, 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 very busy. I don't mind doing it if I do have time. I'd love to help a hunter out. There's no doubt. But 9 times out of 10, I'm running. I don't even eat. I don't come home sometimes. You know what I mean? It's that busy. But a little legwork on their part would avoid all that. Now, if that person, if they've tried and they're like, no, if your deer comes over here, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Maybe hunt a little further away from that property or make a better shot. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've shot placement is key. If you shoot them right, they shouldn't run anywhere. Now, if you're bow hunting, I get it. They're going to run with a bow. But if you shoot them in the shoulder with a 223, it's going to run. You shoot it in the head with 308, it's not going to run. You know what I mean? Right. So I don't like chasing them. I don't like, going after them. So I'm going to make a pretty good shot or try to. Then again, I've shot deer, had them go down, and I've had them get up and run off. So I'm not, things happen, so. Yeah,
that is true. But as you mentioned, we owe that to the animal to be as prepared as possible to pursue them, like you said, to whatever means and extent that you owe that to them.
Absolutely.
To be on your game, making those ethical shots, and most importantly, not taking those shots when they're not warranted.
Right.
So, but that's a whole different type of discussion, right? We could get into.
Oh sure. Yeah. Oh sure.
All right, man. So let's kind of consider that. I'll give us kind of 2 minutes left. Like I said, I want to be sensitive to your time. We of the time we've allotted for this, we've gone over because I could probably do this all day, but do you get much time to hunt as a warden or fish? I
hunt people, man. I hunt the people who are doing it illegally. That's all. That's a way bigger rush than pulling the trigger on an animal that doesn't know that you're there. Trust me, hunting people is where it's at.
Playing a different game.
No, I don't get a lot of opportunity to hunt to harvest animals on my own because I'm just too busy with hunting people. So. I think last time I went hunting, man, it was probably 3 years ago, and right after Harvey, I think my wife bought me for my 40th birthday, bought me a pronghorn antelope hunt up in the Panhandle, and it was in October, so I was able to go. But I think that's the last time I've actually harvested an animal. So just not a lot of time to do that. But like I said, once you hunt people, there's nothing else you want to
do. That is a cool answer because I think what I get from that is the passion that goes into what you do behind that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're describing there is that's what you do now. That's who you are. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It being a game warden is it's not a job. It's not even a career, to be honest with you. It's a way of life. Whenever I go to a party or hang out around people that are not game wardens, that's all they want to talk to you about because you're the game warden, and it's a lot of attention. Some of it's, it gets a bit much sometimes, but it is what it is. So I've been doing it a long time now, 11 years. And it's fun every day. It really is.
Yeah. I believe it. I can hear it in your voice. So Had one last question here, at least I hope anyway. You ever been down Ghost Light Road in Hardin County?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you have, right? You ever seen anything down there?
Like what?
Well, I guess for those who may not know, there's those little stories about the lights that when you drive down there in the middle of the night, that you see the floating lights, in the trees. It's a long stretch of road that goes through the timber. But as you drive down there in the middle of the night, and usually up ahead of you, up behind you, you'll see like orbs, floating lights and orbs. Because I don't know, last time I was out there, I think I only remember seeing like one house down there. But that was kind of the thing back in the days. Kind of go hit up Ghost Light Road about 11 o'clock at night. So
I can't speak to me seeing anything down there. I will tell you, how do you know it's not me though? I've been hiding on Ghost Light Road many a nights.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I did a community service project over there where we walked down Ghost Light Road and picked up trash as well. So but yeah, no, I've been on that road many times, and it's a long road.
It sure is.
It's a lot of fun because people, once they get down there, there's no getting out. I think Mike Boone had somebody run from him on Ghost Light Road once. He was towing a trailer too, but yeah, no, I've been on the road, and I've worked that road at night, mostly at night, and it is quite fun because people think that they're out to see stuff, and if they're out there doing something illegal, then pop out comes the game warden, and they really get scared. Yeah,
they just think that light that they're seeing is probably your headlights coming out.
Pretty much, yeah. I usually get it's a fun road to work as a game warden, I'll tell you that.
Right, I certainly see what you mean, because you get out there, you think, you feel like you're in nowhere. I'd lie if I tell you how long that road goes, but I know it is kind of like one of those things. It's like the further you go down it, you realize that that means the further you got to go back to get out. It's a long road, especially in the dark.
There's no way out. Just one side or the other. That's it. But yeah, that's part of that hunting people, man. I'll get out there at like 7 o'clock in the evening and stay out there until about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and they have no idea that some of them do if I've stopped them. But they get out there and they think they're out in the middle of nowhere, and they start shooting guns from the road or just whatever, and then bam, I'm there on top of them. I mean, there is no better rush than that, and they have no idea how long I've been there either. And I'll if they're not breaking the law, there's no reason to stop them. I mean, I've been several yards from people, have no idea I was there. If they're not breaking the law, I've got no reason to really even tell them I'm there. So
you just let them pass on by, huh?
Yeah, just let them pass by, or they'll stop and they'll talk. They'll look for the light, and I'm just sitting there in a lawn chair, a few feet from them, and they have no idea I'm there. It's a rush. I do it all the time.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, Mark, I think
most
that
words do,
Yeah. Man, I think that about wraps it up for me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking this time out of your busy schedule to spend it here with me and with us and those who came by to listen. And you guys play such an important role in preservation, conservation, serving as stewards of our wildlife and other resources. And it's many people think that we have this infinite amount of habitat and wildlife base here, but that just simply isn't true. We need to have people like you to help us manage those opportunities for not only ourselves, but the generations to come after us. So
absolutely, that's our motto, and that's why I do this, is so my kids can grow up and enjoy the outdoors like I did.
Yep, and we certainly appreciate it, man. I'm sorry I kept you over. I was worried about that, but I think we could probably do this.
Do this again, give me a shout. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate that. And with that, I'll kind of say we're finished up. But I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I look forward to talking with Mark in the future. And in the meantime, we will continue this series of promoting these careers in the outdoors and helping educate those of you who are looking for some insight and what steps to take Thanks again for all of y'all's support, and we will see you in the woods.